Hello, I'm Salty Duchess. Welcome back to Alone Against the Walkers. This is the second episode in the series. We're going to play through a quick solo session of The Walking Dead. There's a previous video you can go check out if you're interested in seeing the campaign setup. If you've already watched that or you don't care, then welcome. So they lay out for us in the book a bit of a structure for our solo sessions. So the first step, if this is not the first session, decide how much time has elapsed. Does not apply here. Roll for each clock on our challenge sheet and fill in a segment if you roll above the number of filled in segments. For the rumors, we can't roll less than no segments. We'll just fill it in now. Our one faction that we know about, the Unwanted, is at 1 out of 6. So let's see if we fill in some progress on their clock, which we do. Next step, create a new rumor. We ignore this step in our first session. Update our Haven's projects, trying to tame the wolves that are nearby the Haven. This is something that's going to take a few people at least weeks or months, so not too much to update. Decide on a challenge and activate it. If a faction clock was filled in during step 2, this is likely to be your current challenge. Yeah, and I think I will go ahead and let them be our current challenge. If appropriate, run a scene where the other NPCs interact with this challenge, embark on a run, or otherwise engage with the challenge, and return home. Okay, I think the direction I'm leaning is that even though the Unwanted is the challenge, this rumor at F6, a dangerous faction, seizing a disease R&D facility, I think we're going to start traveling towards that rumor. And looks like the dangerous faction seizing it will probably be the Unwanted, and we'll meet them there. But we have a fair bit of traveling to do from N10 to F6. All right, I'm realizing now we never actually named our person, Dr. Richard Bachman. Let's go with that. Okay, let's get into some travel rules then. Rations are capacity times 2, so that should be 2 times 2. Quick maths. 4. And you can cover 1 sector a day, so definitely going to have to find some rations on the way. Okay, let's move into sector M9. On the way in, we make a scout roll. So since we have a 2 in wits and a 2 in scout, that is a 6. No successes, that's not the end of the world. As we're moving through this sector, we come across an overgrown park with a huge playground, with a pack of wild dogs hunting here. Let's see if there is an encounter though. On a 6, we'll have an encounter. Okay, 1, no encounter. We don't really have anything to hunt with, so let's try to scavenge. That is a survival roll. We have a 2 in wits and nothing in survival, so just 2 dice. No successes. All right, moving on to the next day. We are going to go to L8. Scout roll first. No successes. Fine. This is an unfamiliar sector. Pass through a beautiful meadow and a pig starts screaming as walkers eat it while we travel through the sector. Roll to see if there's an encounter. Okay, there is. Okay. D6 to determine the encounter type. And we failed our scouting roll on the way into the sector, which means that we get surprised by whatever is coming. A faction encounter. Luck Oracle to see if this is an existing faction. Whoops. No, it is not an existing faction. We'll create that faction in a second. Right now, we're going to see how many faction members are here. Just 1. Reaction table to see how they are responding to me. A 4 is scared, ready to flee, hide, or defend themselves. Time to make a whole new faction, though. 6 to 10 members. Faction type. A group that existed before the outbreak. Perhaps a family, a group of police officers, or scientists. In many ways, they act like the world is just the same as it was before. I'm gonna say, first thing that comes to mind is a congregation, a church group. Leadership. A doctrine or code of conduct is interpreted to decide what is wrong or right. Okay, fitting. They read the Bible. Assets. They have lots of food. Needs. Gear. Issues. I think some of that comes from the type. They're still behaving as if the world isn't different now. So they're kind of maybe in denial about how behavior needs to change to survive. Important NPCs. Going to have one of the important NPCs be Father Niles, leader of the congregation. An issue. They enable the congregation's behavior rather than trying to guide them towards how life needs to be. And then another NPC, Adam Worcester, the right hand to Father Niles, does much of Father Niles' dirty business. I'm kind of imagining Father Niles is kind of trying to protect the congregation from the realities of the world now. So he does some unsavory things to keep the haven up. But I'm imagining Adam is like kind of really off the deep end, a little bit more extreme in how far he thinks things need to go in the post-apocalypse. I guess try to summarize that in a couple words. Slightly unhinged. And the ultimate endgame is that I think our haven gets attacked if we don't convert to their leadership. And let's just call this St. Paul's Church. Okay, all that being said, we are in Sector L8 and we have encountered one NPC from the Church of St. Paul, and they are currently scared and ready to defend themselves. Let's go ahead and try to manipulate them. Makes it sound twisted, but we're using the manipulation skill just to try to talk them down. Maybe part of the reason this member of the church is scared of me is that they're injured, and we have doctor-patient hierarchy, +1 to manipulate someone who's injured, so 5 from empathy, 1 from manipulation, and 1 from doctor-patient hierarchy. Let's see how that goes. All right, 2 successes. You know, maybe we were on our way into some building in the countryside that we were planning on using to sleep in overnight, and yeah, there's this injured dude on a couch in the living room, and he pulls a gun when we come in, and we talk him down and convince him to let us take a look at his wounds and that we don't mean him any harm. So let's make a medicine check as well, and we'll treat the guy and talk with him a little bit. So medicine roll, 5 from empathy and 2 from medicine. All right, success. Patch the guy up a little bit. I'm going to say this is Adam Worcester we've met. I'm also going to say traded medical treatment for a couple of rations. And now I'm just going to write a little bit down of what my character experienced, but basically he's just going to describe meeting Adam Worcester and a little bit of how they talked about his group, as well as Dr. Richard Bachman's group. All right, and the gist of the interaction then, as far as additional details, he does reveal, Adam does, that they can come visit the church at M7. I think that's Carnesville, if I'm reading that right, if they ever desire safety or salvation. And there is always room for more, but they part ways. They're not going to spend the night together, I don't think, in this house, because not quite comfortable enough with each other to do that. Let's see what the next day brings as we travel to K7. Scouting roll on the way into the sector. Lots of 5s, but no successes. We pass by a beautiful lake with lots of frogs. Peaceful sector. Assuming there's no encounter, though, which there is not. It's another day of rations gone, though. Let's go ahead. We're passing by a bit of a city we can try to scavenge, which is just a survival roll. Big money. Ooh, each extra success on a scavenge adds a ration. So we automatically find a ration and get to roll on the scavenging table. Let's call that 262. Cat food, which is salmon in jelly. It functions as a ration, though. Not a nice one. But that's basically 2 rations picked up. Let's keep it moving to K6. Scout. This time, as we're moving through the sector, we pass by an overrun news team with a van in the middle of the forest. As fitting, K6 is on the edge of a forest. But let's see if there's an actual encounter. There's not. Good. Let's see, we've got the rations to keep going towards our destination. So I'm just gonna keep it trucking. Scout roll is a success for once. Keep moving through the dense forests. Sector K5. Maybe we move past some walkers pinned to trees. A little bit of a grotesque scene. No encounter. Would have actually taken an encounter with the good scouting roll for once. But the next day, we are arriving at Cave 4, our destination. Scouting roll is a success. There is not an encounter. Not a random one anyways. We will encounter our rumor, where a walker swarm is attacking a scientist group. We have got to try to get closer. I mean, I'm imagining a walker swarm kind of starting to surround a bunch of scientists trapped in a bit of a compound with walkers kind of all around the perimeter. So Dr. Bachman wants to get closer with a stealth roll. This is going to start being an important roll. Okay, I think I've got to take some stress now to try to make this work. So we're gonna add a stress dice to the pool, which will increase our chances of succeeding, but also increase our chances of messing up. Oh, God, dude. Okay. I'll have to invoke my drive. My drive is to cure and research the outbreak, so getting into this facility, talking to these scientists, fits right in with my drive. That gives you 2 more dice on the roll. Yeah. I mean, okay, so that approach isn't working. They're kind of trying to find like a pathway that they can sneak into the facility, and they're just making a circle around the compound, and there's just nothing that they can spot. So we need a different approach. Okay, I think their new approach is going to be to interact with a bunch of the cars on the road along the way towards the compound, trying to see if they can find a car that has enough juice to set off an alarm. I think I'm going to just say they do find one, but once the alarm gets set off, they're going to need to try a mobility roll to get away from the coming zombies, and then a stealth roll to sneak away once they've escaped. Oh boy, this could be interesting. This is not too dissimilar to how my first character ever died. 3 from agility, 2 from mobility, and 1 stress. I'm going to take another point of stress. I mean, am I really? It's crazy. Yep. All right, now we've got some successes. Mobility roll, they get it moving after they start the alarm, and a stealth roll now to sneak through a gap that they've made to get into the compound. All right, some successes and no mess ups. All right, he makes his way into the compound. He hasn't been seeing anyone, but he could tell the walkers were interested in the compound, so he still snuck in based on the rumor. Let's see what the NPC reaction is like, though. A 3. So I think one of the scientists in this compound is going to peek out from behind some door and motion for Bachman to quickly get into the building with them. Okay. I'm going to say the NPC he meets is Dr. Ackfield and explains why he's here, heard the rumor, has an interest in pursuing a cure and all that. I want to roll on this theme oracle a time or two to see if we can get an idea of what's going on here. Oh man, brutality and darkness is what the theme is saying. So I think Ackfield is going to string Bachman along for a while, but they are clearly performing some very unethical experiments, perhaps deeper in the darkest parts of the facility. But he's maybe going to spend a few days here getting to know people and slowly uncovering this mystery, I guess. All right, we're going to say that Dr. Bachman is staying here for a few days and that it's reasonably safe. We're going to get rid of their stress, and we're going to see what they learn, if anything, about what's really going on here. Starting with a medicine roll. After a couple of days, they let him start helping out with some testing, but they don't bring him downstairs to where some of the more unsavory things are happening. Okay. He does fine, not fantastic. Doesn't notice anything sort of suspicious about the samples he's given. Let's also roll a manipulation check as he talks a little bit to Dr. Atfield. See if maybe Atfield lets something slip as they communicate. Okay. He maybe catches something a little bit off from Atfield. Maybe Atfield is talking a little bit too intensely about how important it is they find a cure and what sort of sacrifices they'll need to make, the awful things they'll need to do to find the cure. And I think Dr. Bachman isn't really mentally there yet. I'm imagining it's a little bit slightly earlier days of the apocalypse rather than, months or years in. So there's still some more people who are a bit, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and think that things can be solved civilly. But as we had established on the way here, the unwanted was our challenge for the day. So I think Bachman stays here for a few days, helps a little bit with the experiments, talks with Atman a little bit, has some mild ideological disagreements, but nothing too crazy. When on the morning of the 4th day, all of these survivors in vehicles suddenly kind of crush their way through the zombie horde that was around the perimeter of this compound. And Atman and Bachman come out to see what the ruckus is, and suddenly it's just guns in their faces. And there's a lot of confusion and shouting, and it's hard to know exactly what's going on. The people who have suddenly shown up are shouting about, where did they take their friends? They start giving names. Atfield isn't saying anything. And I think at first Bachman is trying to stand up for Atfield and de-escalate the situation. Let's even make a manipulation roll to see exactly how that goes. 5 from empathy and 1 from the manipulation skill. He calms things down a little bit, and then eventually the leader of this group that has suddenly burst into the compound, let's say it's Amanda McCarthy from the Unwanted faction. Amanda says, let's settle this then. Let's go down into the facility and we'll show you what he's really doing here. And they bring him down, they force everyone. They force Atfield, Bachman, and maybe Atfield had a couple of assistants that don't really need names, but they're also brought down into the facility by this group of the Unwanted that showed up. And at the depths of the facility, they expose there are a number of members of the Unwanted that are chained down to beds. Some of them have turned into zombies, and some are just right on the cusp of death. It's a really horrible scene, and Atfield tries to justify himself by saying that he believes the way to learn about the cure is to study the exact moment that the infection takes hold. And him and his assistants had gotten a couple of individuals from the Unwanted. There's maybe an individual or two that perhaps aren't affiliated with the Unwanted. We'll say maybe they've already turned into walkers. And if Bachman had succeeded at his medicine role, he might have noticed something was off with the samples that he had been testing. Maybe how fresh the samples would be a bit off or whatever, but he had no idea what was going on down here. And I think where he's at right now ultimately disagrees with Atfield's methods. Amanda McCarthy, she wants to just execute Atfield here and now. I'm going to see if Bachman can talk her out of that. Nope. He does not talk her out of it. And Atfield is executed here in the basement of this compound. I think now Bachman is going to have to try to convince Amanda that he basically just got here and has no real ongoing affiliation with Atfield. Okay. He fails to convince her. But as she's about to pull the trigger, one of the other Unwanted that was chained to one of the beds that was in better condition stands up for him and testifies that he hasn't seen me around at all, and vouches for him and manages to talk Amanda out of executing Bachman as well. And she lets him go, but that is their first introduction to who the Unwanted are. And they might have let Dr. Bachman go, but still has to make the journey home. So let's see if we can make it. Make our way south out of this facility compound as the Unwanted are kind of finishing up the last of the walkers that were around the compound. And also I think maybe part of their confrontation was revealing that the walkers were kind of there by design to try to keep people out of the facility, especially to prevent people from being rescued from the facility. But let's make a scout roll, successful scout roll. Let's see if there is an encounter. No encounter. Let's move into K6 today. Another scout roll. Nada. We need to try to scavenge because we are running low on rations here. Okay, 411. Ooh, 3 rations in a sports bag. Potatoes and carrots. Okay, they're pretty safe now, but let's keep moving. Scout roll, fail. Encounter roll, no encounter. Let's go ahead and try to scavenge. All right, getting lucky. 642 on a scavenge. Oh, a net for fishing. That's pretty big. Moving into grid L8. Scouting roll is a success. Encounter, no encounter. And this time we are going to hunt using our fishing net. Hey, so we'll eat some fish for supper. 9. Scout successfully. Encounter. None. Fishing. None. And back home. Scout. Fail. Encounter. None. But we are home again. Now we just need to earn our experience. Did you participate in the session? Sure did. Did you achieve something important? I would say so. Investigating that rumor and meeting a couple of new factions. Did you learn something? And what? We learned about new factions. Did you explore at least one new sector on the travel map? Yes. Did your drive, your issue, or any of your relationships make an impact on the session? Not really. Let's call it there. 3 experience for the session. And then we would rinse and repeat, following the same solo guidelines, but that is a session. Bachman ventures out of the haven, finds a research compound, gets hopeful, helping someone do some research, finding someone he thought was like-minded, and ending in disaster when he realizes how far this person was going to try to find a cure. And maybe they were right. Maybe. Well, that is it for our session of the Walking Dead universe role-playing game. Thanks for your time. Bye.